designing AI that sees us, powered by Blind-Centric data. Speaker, Mike Buckley, Chairman and CEO of Be My Eyes. Moderator, Corey Lyle, CEO of the Vista Center.
Hello, everyone. My name is Corey Lyle, and I'm the CEO for Vista Center, the executive producer of SiteTech Global. Today's conversation is one I've been especially looking forward to because it sits at the intersection of innovation, responsibility, and lived experience. We are here to explore one of the most urgent questions in AI right now. How do we ensure that the next generation of AI systems truly work for blind and low vision people? And the answer is in design. And for that, you need the right data, you need the right perspectives, and you need leadership that understands that accessibility isn't an edge case, it's a core requirement. Which brings me to today's esteemed speaker, Mike Buckley, who is the CEO of Be My Eyes, a global platform serving millions of blind and low vision users in more than 150 countries. Under Mike's leadership, Be My Eyes launched Be My AI, one of the first mainstream deployments of GTP-powered visual assistants, and a tool that's reshaping what day-to-day independence looks like for our community. But what truly distinguishes Mike is his vision for how AI should be built. He's one of the strongest voices calling for AI systems trained on blind-centric data that reflects the real environments, questions, tasks, and challenges that blind users face every day. This session is about technology, yes, but it's also about equity, agency, and the right to independence. Mike, thank you for being here with us and for everything that Be My Eyes continues to contribute to the blind and low vision community. Let's dive in.
Thank you so much. Kudos back to you for everything you and Vista Center do to make the world more accessible. Not a political comment, but it does take a village. And I'm glad to share the space with you in that village. So
Thank you.
Happy to be here. My name is Mike Buckley. I'm the CEO of Be My Eyes. I'm a white middle-aged male. I have brown but rapidly graying hair, and I'm in a home office flanked by a real guitar over my right shoulder and a Lego guitar over my left and some other doodads. But it really is a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm here to make a desperate plea and make a pretty, I hope, adamant argument about the dramatic need to get more disability data into AI data sets. For those of you watching, listening, I'm showing a slide that says why AI needs blind data. And it's a user holding a smartphone, an iPhone, as well as what looks to be a VR headset. Two things. That VR headset was AI generated and it's not real. It's not one that exists in the world. However, I asked the 4 best models, the best AI models in the world, what that headset was. One told me it was an eye massager. One told me it was an Apple Vision Pro. One told me it was smart glasses. And one told me it might be an AR headset. It's none of those. And so this underscores the problem that we're going to be talking about today. Now, what happens when it's much more real in terms of a failure mode? What happens when we're talking about medication? What happens when we're talking about what I'm showing on a slide are a traffic light, expiration dates, spatial guidance in a bus stop, and descriptions in a train station? What happens when the use cases and the stakes are higher and we see failure modes in AI? The risk for everyone on the planet is real, but the risk for the blind or low vision consumer is much more acute. And unfortunately, what we see is that models, even great models, and by the way, I'm a huge fan of AI. It's important for the world. It's great for the blind and low vision community, and we need to embrace it because we could enter a golden era of accessibility, but we have to be honest about its problems and issues. Why does AI fail? Why does it give us confident and inaccurate descriptions? The slide I'm showing shows 2 pictures. One is a pristine kitchen with everything beautifully labeled on a countertop, and the other literally looks like a tornado went through the kitchen. The issue with AI training data is that more of it is trained on beautiful, pristine, nice data sets. This creates systemic failures in AI design because it doesn't reflect the messy reality of life, right? A beautiful image in perfect lighting conditions is not always going to help the AI answer for a blind or low vision consumer who's holding their camera at an angle maybe that the AI thinks is odd or is imperfect, or if there are lower light conditions. And so AI can struggle with real world scenarios, leading to failures, by the way, that disproportionately threaten to risk or create harm to blind and low vision consumers. And that's unacceptable. Now, the good news is there is a way through this problem, and that is specifically by incorporating more blind and low vision data sets. And why is that? One of the ways that we can fix this is that some of the realities of blind life can be messy and or imperfect, right? Whether it's a blurry photo or, as we talked about earlier, an odd angle, or what AI thinks is an odd angle, or different light conditions. Blind data sets force these models to acknowledge uncertainty, right? This is sometimes called in the literature domain shift or distribution shift, which basically means when the model's trained on something that's different from the reality that's in front of it. So these blind data sets have the power, right, to force these models to answer uncertainty, and acknowledge uncertainty rather, and reduce falsehoods. So think about like when a Be My Eyes volunteer or an IRA agent, right, is asked by a blind or low vision consumer about something, that volunteer or that agent can have the blind or low vision person move the camera, right, to improve spatial reasoning, change the angle, improve the lighting, have a back and forth dialogue about what problem in the image is causing us not to be able to solve the problem. So take an expiration date on a carton of milk. Well, if the camera's not pointed at an expiration date, right, that human volunteer or that human agent can help. When AI gets that information, it should be then able to learn how to answer, to deal with that uncertainty, right? And then better guide a blind or low vision consumer through whatever task they need to complete. But that also makes AI better for sighted users, right? And so not only is there a net benefit, right, to the blind and low vision community in terms of accessibility or better AI for blind and low vision, but it's going to make AI better for anybody. So it's incumbent upon us to apply as much pressure on these model makers as we can. What I'd ask you to think about when you think about this problem is to go back in time. It's 1996. The internet is starting to catch fire, and everyone is having a mad dash and rush to create websites. What happened as a result of that mad dash? Well, one of the things that happened is people designed websites and internet experiences that weren't grounded in disability, right, or accessibility. What is the net result of that? To this day, it's 2025, and more than 90% of websites have inaccessible elements. Now think about that problem times 10 with AI, with a real-time voice agent enabling you through navigation through a subway or telling you about your medication. So this is not some theoretical problem that it'd be nice to solve. It's a problem that we have to solve. And where we are in this cycle, right, of AI right now is that foundation models are really being developed as we speak, and we really need to figure out how to attack this problem. There's a quotation from the founder of Be My Eyes, Hans-Jürgen Weiberg, who was a Vista honoree last year. Thank you very much for that. In addition to being a remarkable human being, and in addition to taking his personal kind of problem and figuring out a technological solution that blended technology and human kindness, Hans has a great quotation about this, and I just want to read it to you. And he says, we believe there's a moral imperative to ensure AI models not only account for blindness in blind people, but do so in a way that's consistent with our actual experiences, capabilities, and power. Our premise is simple. Our mission is to make the world more accessible for people who are blind or have low vision, and that has to include shaping the future of AI.
Mhm.
And I like to read that quotation whenever I talk to audiences about this issue, because I don't think I could say it better. But it also talks about the moral imperative here, right? And taking actual lived experience and making that a part of the reality and the reflection. And by the way, the regurgitation, right, that these models do for us. And so anyway, I've always appreciated that comment by Hens.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So when we think about building better AI, I have 6 components on the slide here, and I'll kind of go over them. But one is this notion of having real data, right? And it's a huge component of making AI better. A second is that we really need to be consistent and forthright and aggressive about gathering preference data from blind evaluators of models regularly. And I give some credit to OpenAI here, because they allowed us to bring 19,000 beta testers to the initial launch of GPT-4. Google and Gemini are doing some work here with other companies. And so we really do need to make sure that we're listening. And getting model makers to listen to us. So one is real data. 2 is making sure that we get preference data from blind users. The third is really providing some anti-ableism training, right, for the people who are involved in the development of these models on the engineering side, the computer vision side, all of the above. Fourth is implementing uncertainty labeling. That's that thing we were talking about a minute or two ago, where the model acknowledges that, hey, I can't really tell now, rather than giving a very confident false answer.
Mm-hmm.
So that labeling and that uncertainty acknowledgement is a huge component, and something that's really that really requires a lot of improvement. The fifth is robustness of OCR, optical character recognition, right? Seeing AI has been a leader here. Many of the models do a pretty good job on OCR, but as we charge headlong into a future of wearables, near real-time data, lots more imperfect lighting, spacing conditions, we have to make sure that OCR functionality and AI performs well in a multitude of environments, right? And so that's going to require testing. I know, Corey, you talked with Joe Devon about some of the work they're doing on AI coding and making sure that the HTML is up to speed with respect to accessibility and assigning scores. We ought to be able to do the same thing on building scorecards for optical character recognition and uncertainty in all these models. And then the last thing, and this is something that we're going to ask model makers to invest in, and something we're going to invest in, is the number 6 point on this slide, which is lowering what we call prompt literacy, right? Knowing how to ask the AI what you need and using specific language and specific cues is going to be a part of this battle, right? For example, sometimes you don't need to hear about 72 items in the picture, including the pretty flowers over someone's shoulder. You just need what the menu says, right? Or what the instructions say, or what your airport gate is. And so helping the community understand how to prompt and ask questions to get specifically what you want from AI is a really important component. And by the way, like Be My Eyes operates in over 180 countries and over 180 languages. So this is not something where just, users in the US or UK and Europe need to be able to do this. This is training that has to happen globally so that a blind or low vision consumer in rural India can figure out to get the information she needs just as well as someone sitting in Chicago. And so these are the components of building AI, but arguably the most important here is getting a better data set into these models. I want to talk a little bit about, the slide just changed to talk about a little bit the partnership that we have between Be My Eyes and Microsoft that we announced at the end of 2024. And this is something where we went out to the community. We did a lot of listening to talk about how we could thoughtfully, meaningfully, transparently incorporate data into models. And so this collaboration with Microsoft is using Be My Eyes proprietary blind and low vision data sets to help better inform models. And it's part of something Jenny Leigh Fleury and Microsoft talked about a lot, about bridging the disability data desert. A lot of times is what Jenny calls it, and others scholars have called it. And making sure that this is done in a privacy-centric manner. And we have very strict limitations on how data can be used. And so there's no personal information in terms of the metadata, and nobody's allowed to market on this. But this was the first partnership of its kind to incorporate disability data deserts. And I really want to give a shout out to Microsoft for thoughtfully partnering with us on this. Be My Eyes will be partnering with more model trainers in the near future. Unfortunately, nothing to announce yet today, but we will have probably a number of announcements with other foundation model makers and others on using these data sets to address this very challenge. But I did want to give a public shout out to Microsoft. I know Sakib is at the conference too, and I'm a huge fan of his. So thanks to all the team at Microsoft for working with us, not only on doing this, but also highlighting the problem. I guess I just say I think we're kind of at a crossroads right now, and this is where I'll end up is, I think if we allow models to kind of go in the direction that they're going right now and training on mostly clean data or more clean data, I think we're going to have a problem. I think we're going to replicate the problems that we saw on internet accessibility, only they're going to be more acute for the members of our community. And so we've got to attack this, and we've got to take the path of more inclusive models. And I promise you, this is something that Be My Eyes is literally working on every day. We are making calls and emails and doing everything we can to persuade, cajole. We have not started threatening yet, but maybe we need to think about that. Because it's a societal level imperative. It's a moral imperative, as Hans says. And so I'm always happy to answer questions. Anybody can feel free to kind of email me at Be My Eyes. It's mike@bemyeyes.com. I sometimes get 200 emails when I do that, but I always commit to answer them all. And Corey, I know you probably have some questions. Again, thank you for having me here to talk about something I'm truly quite passionate about.
Yeah, thank you. And I think you laid out the problem and some of the steps that you're taking in a really clear manner. And I think our audience is following you really well. One thing I think that might help at this point is maybe to give an example. So I'll tell you more specifically. So Microsoft Copilot is looking at some data from Be My Eyes. What might that data set or that use case be, just to give us an example of how Copilot's learning?
So it might be kind of a video, literally, of someone asking about the expiration date on something. Or is this the correct airport gate, right? And the reason this data is powerful is because a lot of it has to do with a conversation between two humans that are being kind to each other to solve a problem, right? Is this airport gate A6? And then a volunteer or a trained agent or another human being says, oh, can you lift your camera up a little higher? Can you pan to the right? Right? It's actually giving the information to the AI that says, I don't have the answer in front of me. And so I need to do some sort of action, either with my hand or something else. And that can make these systems better performing across the board. So that's kind of one example.
I think that's a really good example. So almost, if you will, framing the right object, right? Which is very, very difficult to do for a sighted person with a regular camera, but let alone, right? So I can understand that one. And then what about if an example whereby if the medicine bottle has an expiration, you said that AI can confidently falsely identify or falsely label. Are we looking, do you think, for the AI to be smart enough to say, I can't read this, please don't take it? Or do we want, because we don't want the wrong data, but what's the alternative to that, I think?
I think that's that training to be able to acknowledge uncertainty that we talked about, right?
Okay.
Like, first of all, we always say, like, never trust AI with like anything, life or death, medical information, allergens, things like that. It's not worth it, right? So connect with a Be My Eyes volunteer. If you have the means, call an IRA agent or another professional agent, call a family member, et cetera. And so I don't ever want anybody making kind of the true kind of safety decisions based on this data, based on these models where they are today. I think so. Two things. I think we want to get the models to a place where they acknowledge uncertainty. And then we also want to get them to a place where they're much less likely to be wrong. And thankfully, right, what we've seen over the last couple of years is hallucinations, which is AI industry parlance for like confident errors, have dropped a lot, right?
Yes.
The models are doing a lot less hallucinations, but they're still doing it, right? Which is why every AI session on Be My Eyes allows you the opportunity to roll over to a human volunteer if you ever want to verify anything. And so I think that's the short-term solution. And then the midterm solution is better uncertainty labeling and then better models.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think there can be dialogue that can get more specific as well, right? And I think we see that with the telephone models, right? So there's a bit of AI when you're doing your phone call to your bank. And I didn't understand that, right? And so then, please reestablish your numbers or right, try again. So there's like phrases that we know, and I guess that would probably bubble up as well with AI.
Yeah, and for sure. And like you raised a pet peeve of mine, by the way, so I'm going to talk about it. But like most AI systems won't let you read like the numbers on your credit card, right? And things like that. And I understand why, right? And it's really important, but like that's something that needs to be addressed,
Right.
And not everybody has the means or the global scale to call a professional agent or even a volunteer, right? Not everybody is on Be My Eyes or IRA or Seeing AI or whatever it is, and so we have to figure out how to put this power and make these models better in those types of situations.
So let me pivot for a minute because I love the path that we're on, but now I can hear the naysayers a little bit, and I want to make sure they get heard, which is, oh my God, you've got all this data. How are you protecting the privacy of the data, and the confidentiality of someone who might have shown their medicine and their name or something like that? I know you all are thinking about it. I just want to
Such
give
a
you a
good
chance to talk that through.
Such a good question. And obviously we and Microsoft were very like hyper concerned about that issue. Like the first thing is we strip anything personal from the metadata, right? So that gets taken out. The second is we have pretty sophisticated software that can identify the things you're talking about. So if there is a medication label, right, we won't include that for now until there's a better way to do that. We can work on better lighting conditions and better OCR, which will improve the medical reading. But so we strip out personal information from the metadata. We screen anything that we share for anything personal, everything from like license plates and names and addresses and medical information. All of that is pulled out, right? So that's not a part of the training. The other thing that we did is, as part of our Microsoft announcement, we announced principles, right? One is on transparency and disclosure, meaning we're not only going to tell you what's going on and when we're doing this, we're also going to name names on our partners, right? In terms of who we're working with. The second is stripping out the metadata. The third, and this is really important, is we prohibit any partners of ours from using the data in any way that's unrelated to training. So there's no like weird marketing crap, right? Or anything that goes on, and there's no sharing the data with external third parties or anything like that. So there are really quite strict limitations. The fourth is that the blind members of the Be My Eyes board of directors have veto power over any decision that we make here or any kind of partnership that we want to do. And I think we also announced enhanced kind of protections for the people using our service. which are things like opt-outs, which we never had before. So anybody that wants can opt out, but we also made a commitment that we wouldn't share Be My AI results either.
Okay.
So we want Be My AI to kind of be, it's all about how you want to use it.
Okay. Okay. So it's mainly the human to human conversations that you're pulling.
Right. And this is where the market's going, right? Like you interacting probably with an AI system using your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what we have to get better on, that as well as the visual descriptions of all sorts of stuff.
Great. Okay. Any other compliance issues that you're working through that you want to tell the audience about so that the anxiety continues to go down about using AI?
Well, I don't think I want anxiety to be huge on using AI, but I do think you should be an informed consumer and have a dose of skepticism, right? And a bit of self-protective instincts, right? I think it's a beautiful thing. Like if you're at a restaurant and you get all the menu choices, that's really cool, right? Are you always going to trust it to identify an allergen? I think I would pretty much double check with the waiter, right? Or the server on some capacity on that. And so I think we want a slightly skeptical consumer, but I think that the power and the transformative ability for independence and power, right? And power for the blind or low vision consumer. I think it's important to experiment with and use these tools in ways that work for you and your environment.
Yeah, trust but verify when it's meaningful. Yeah, I like that. And then we're getting close to the end of our session today, and so we've been talking, and your passion is palpable about what is needed. And when you're talking about it, you're saying it in a way that you're worried that it might not happen, right? And you're at that level of energy and that level of convincing, right? I love that. But if you lift your chin from that for a minute and look out over the horizon, I think we're very optimistic at Vista Center, and by listening to all the other speakers from the conference, we've got about 50 speakers this year. Are you optimistic, or I'm kind of evading the question a bit, and I'm not trying to, but what is your view of how AI will benefit the community in the future?
I'd call it optimistic. I would say occasionally it's cautious optimism, but here's the reason I'm optimistic is there's a tremendous economic incentive to do this for these model makers, right? I mean, if you think about the internet, I think most companies that screwed this up, and by the way, we all did, including companies that I worked at at the time, right? I don't think we saw initially where the economic problem was with an inaccessible website. Right? We didn't feel it. And that may be because disability numbers weren't big enough. It may be because of the sobering economic stats related to the blind and low vision community, about 70% of people being underemployed or unemployed. It may be a host of those things. But there's the war, the crazy race that's occurring right now on AI. Once these model makers see that blind and low vision data can improve the model for everybody, that's pretty cool. So do I think that some of these people are doing it out of the goodness of their heart and for moral? Yes, right? The work and the headaches that we caused up with Meta, working with them on the glasses and doing 6 months of engineering work together, it's caused Meta wanted these things to be accessible, right? Same thing with our work with Microsoft. Same thing with the beta testers in OpenAI. But longer term, the longer tail of model makers and AI generally, if you want your model to be awesome and solve more of humanity's needs, this data can help you do that.
Well, it can become a differentiator in the next couple of years, and then it becomes a must-have. And that's when we know our mission, you and I, and the leaders, the accessibility leaders have really accomplished it, is when it's ubiquitous, right? And we all benefit from it. And, the curve model is proven once again.
You're hired on our sales team, right? Look, FOMO, I hope we can get some FOMO going.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. For sure. Because look, companies aren't bad people, but companies do act out of their economic interests. That's just reality. Right. And so we need to make our argument part of their economic interests. And I think we're on the verge of successfully doing that. Now we just got to do more, faster, better.
Yeah, exactly. Always, always. Well, and SiteTech Global is one of the pillars that we have at Vista Center to kind of keep holding that up, and we appreciate that you've got a couple of pillars in your court as well. So we love so much this session. We love your passion. Be My Eyes is a terrific company, and we were so excited to honor hands. And you know, have you all participate, and so we're finishing up with this session. Thank you, Mike Buckley, CEO of Be My Eyes, and we appreciate so much everything that your company is doing for the blind and low vision community.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all the work that you do every day in this world.
Thank you.